The Canon R5 Mark II is good, but I'm not buying it. Hi, my name is Rich Dyson from Edinburgh Photography Workshop, and this is Coffee Break Photography. Yesterday morning I was enjoying some rare Edinburgh sunshine running one of my switch to manual workshops. At the same time, Canon launched two new cameras. Shortly after, there will have been countless videos either stating that these are the best cameras ever to be produced, or alternatively stating that Canon has lost its way and these cameras are rubbish. Now, I'm not privileged enough to access one of the pre-production models, so all I can go off is the video issued by Canon and the specifications that was subsequently posted on the website. To recap, Canon has announced the R1, which they are calling their flagship camera, designed for news and sports photographers. They then launched the R5 Mark II, a replacement for my primary camera, the R5. I think most people who subscribe to this channel aren't dropping nearly £7,000 on a new camera body, so I'll concentrate today's video on the R5 Mark II. The launch video from Canon is a good indication of which new features they think are the ones they are most proud of. Their three big selling points were a BSI Sensor, 8K 60p video and a 45 megapixel still sensor. They then talked about dual pixel intelligent autofocus, 30 frames per second shutter speed and a full-sized HDMI port. And they finished by highlighting the addition of an accelerator processor, pre-continuous shooting and some additional features available for video shooters. There's lots of jargon in there, so let's break down exactly what we're offered with the new Canon R5 Mark II. So there's a lot of talk about a BSI sensor, but precisely what is this? Our old CMOS sensors were made up of lots of pixels, and each pixel contained three lenses at the top, capturing red, blue and green light. The light then passes through some wires, but small amounts of the light would get deflected away by these wires from landing on the eventual destination, the photodiodes at the bottom of the pixel. The BSI sensor, or backside illuminated sensor, flips things around. We still have the lens at the front, but this time the light is directed straight into the photodiode, and all the wire gubbins are at the bottom of the sensor. Clearly, more light will get to the photodiode, so the sensor will produce brighter, less noisy images, and the camera can read the information collected faster, allowing for faster shutter speeds. Well, it seems pretty obvious that a BSI sensor would always be better, but in the past, the cost of production of a BSI sensor was restrictive. Over time, camera manufacturers have found ways to reduce the complexity of building these sensors, and now Canon joins Sony in offering BSI sensors in the cameras. If we look at the differences between the R5 and the R5 Mark II, we can see the benefits the BSI sensor has given. The maximum frames per second is increased from 20 to 30 due to the better read speeds. There is an extra half a stop in the in-body stabilisation, and the autofocus can now focus with a range of -6.5 EV to +21 EV, as opposed to -6 EV to +20 EV on the R5. And that means we can get focus at an additional 1.5 stops. Let's stay on the sensor for another of the big things Canon is selling: the dual pixel intelligent autofocus. Back in the day, some of the pixels would be used specifically for autofocus, and others would be used for imaging, i.e. capturing light. The dual pixel part means a single pixel can now be used for autofocus and imaging, and that should mean we get better autofocus performance as more of the sensor is being used for focusing. The intelligent part relates to machine learning that is built into the cameras. Canon has trained the processor using millions of images to recognise things like eyes on humans, different animals, vehicles, and many other things, so that the autofocus system can lock onto various kinds of subjects faster. In the R5, we can tell the camera to look for humans, animals and vehicles. The R5 Mark II takes this a step further. The human option can now detect eyes, faces, heads, the upper half of the body and the full body. Animal detection can detect cats, dogs, horses and birds, with all their different foibles. And vehicles have specific modes for racing cars, motorbikes, aeroplanes and trains. They've even offered people priority, where you can identify up to 10 people in the settings and the camera will prioritise focusing on them. It starts with whoever is listed as number 1, and if it can't see them, it'll go to number 2, and so on. It's clever stuff, but I can't think where I might practically use this. Perhaps the official photographer of the royal family, presidents or prime ministers might find this helpful, but not me when I've got different clients every day. The final addition to autofocus options is included with the R1 as well, action priority. Canon has taken 3 sports, soccer or football, basketball and volleyball, and it's taught the camera to predict where the action will be and focus on the relevant player. The videos I've seen of this working are amazing. It's going to be really interesting to see if the snappers using the R1 at the Olympics get more sales due to having more usable images to choose from. All these features need much more processing power, which is why an additional processor is added to the R5 Mark II and also into the R1. The accelerator chip allows for multiple processing to take place, so as well as the focus improvements, the auto white balance algorithm has been improved using the additional processing power to set a white balance based on deep learning technology. The number of pixels used for metering has also increased from 384 points on the R5 to 6,144 on the R5 Mark II. And that should give us much better exposures when using light meter. The processor may also have led to another feature not talked about by Canon, but it'll be interesting in addition if it does what I think it does. The tech specs talk about the addition of a neural network noise reduction, and this suggests Canon has trained the processor to reduce the noise seen in images by using deep learning training. It looks like the fantastic technology we've seen introduced into the likes of Lightroom and Topaz dropping down into the camera body. And that should mean less post-production, which is always good for me. The last new feature for stills photography is pre-continuous shooting. This feature is supposed to help save mission shots just before you press the button. When you enable the feature, the camera will shoot 15 images before the shutter has been pressed. You can't change how many photos are captured in the pre-processing period as you can with the Sony Pro cameras. For the type of photography I do, I'm not sure how many times I've missed too many shots just before I press the button. It will be different for sports and wildlife photographers, but for portraits and landscapes, all I can see this doing is filling up my memory cards and causing more images to review before I start editing. As well as being a great stills camera, the 5D range and now the R5 cameras are also renowned for their video capabilities. I don't profess to be a video expert. I've taught myself to be able to record reasonable videos for this channel using my R6, but still I don't feel massively qualified to talk about the improvements in a knowledgeable and intelligible way. The key difference I can recognise though is that we can now shoot 8K RAW video, and from speaking to pals who shoot video, they'll use this additional recording capability to crop into videos later in post-processing and still retain really good quality. Another addition to the R5 Mark II is the ability to use Canon Log 2. And this improves the image quality and dynamic range of video. Again, as I'm not shooting video in differing conditions, it's not a functionality I'll be dipping into too often. Still, I can see this will be a beneficial change for those shooting video at, say, weddings. There are some things that I would have loved to have seen in the R5 Mark II, but haven't been delivered. And the first is a bugbear I have when using the electronic shutter. You must use an electronic shutter to get the 30 frames per second or 25 frames on the R5. But because the shutter's silent and there's no mechanical moving parts, it's almost impossible to know when you start and stop shooting. It would be great to have some kind of haptic feedback on the shutter button that gives a satisfying click to know the camera is shooting. The other thing I would have liked to have seen is GPS put into the camera. My old 1DX Mark II used to have an option to record a shot's GPS position. Sure, it reduced the battery a little, but but I found this data helpful in making better captions and keywords when importing the pictures through Photomechanic. Canon R5 and in the future R5 Mark II users will need to use the Canon Camera Connect app instead to write the GPS data to the camera. I wouldn't have much of an issue with this if it were reliable, but it isn't. Quite often I can shoot and see the GPS being recorded, then suddenly it'll stop. The R5 range is a professional type camera, so it should have the same features built into it that the R3 and I assume the R1 has. Come on Canon, when you bring out the R5 Mark III, please add GPS in camera. I think it's fair to say that the R5 Mark II has some great improvements. If Canon wants to send me one, I'm going to be very happy to use it. There might be a marginal improvement in the pictures I take, primarily because of the BSI Sensor's increased dynamic range. But do the improvements justify shelling out £1 short of £4,500? Unfortunately, no. I shoot corporate portraits, interiors, theatre and general press shoots for my professional work. I also shoot landscapes and seascapes for pleasure and when teaching my workshops. 30 frames per second might be nice for shooting ballet performances, but the existing 20 frames per second generally does a good job. The additional dynamic range for autofocus might help too, but I'm not convinced it's going to generate an additional £4,500 in sales. I don't shoot enough videos to make the improvements in video worth spending this amount of money, and I don't shoot enough sports to see the benefit of the absolutely amazing focus improvements in the autofocus system. So for me, I'm not going to spend my hard-earned money on buying the latest camera body just because it's the latest camera body. And this leads me to my tip whenever new gear is announced, particularly if you aren't lucky enough to be someone for whom money is no object. Look at your photography with the gear you're currently using. Is there something you can't do because technically the camera cannot do it? For example, if someone wants to shoot sports but has an entry-level DSLR, upgrading to improve the frames per second may have a clear benefit. If your current camera does what you need it to, you probably don't need to upgrade. If the shiny new camera has features you can see a clear use for, but you might want to consider it, but only if you can see the additional benefit. As a professional photographer, I treat this as a financial benefit. But for many amateurs, it'll be a decision between spending money and how it will make you feel your photography has been improved. Generally for me, don't buy the latest camera just because it's the newest camera. Buy it because you need it. I'd been interested in any comments you have. Pop them below and let's have a discussion about my thoughts. It'd be great if you could subscribe to the channel using this button down here. You can also like the video by clicking on the thumbs up below. My name is Rich Dyson from Edinburgh Photography Workshop. This has been Coffee Break Photography. See you next time.